A fingertip drags a line of red across gray stone. It is not a spear and it is not a snare. It catches no fish and kills no animal and feeds no hungry child waiting by the fire. It means nothing at all, and somehow it means everything. For 3 million years, through every toolmaker who ever cracked a stone, every firekeeper who ever fed a flame, every hunter who ever outthought a lion, no creature that has ever lived has done this one small thing. A mind has just made a mark that stands for something only it can see, not a picture of the world, a sign that lives inside a skull and nowhere else. 73,000 years from now, someone will lift this stone from the dark and hold it to the light, and it will still be trying to speak. On the cliffs of the southern coast of Africa, above a sea the color of slate, a young woman kneels at a flat grinding stone and makes the most precious thing her people own. Her name is Naru, and she is the one who makes the color. She takes a nodule of iron-rich earth, ochre, the deep red of dried blood and of the sun going down into the water, and she grinds it against quartzite until the stone gives up its dust. None of this is invented for a story. In this exact cave, archaeologists uncovered the oldest known workshop on Earth. 100,000 years ago, people here mixed paint and stored it inside the curved shells of abalone, and the shells were still there when we found them. And the making was not simple. The recipe had steps, and each step had to be held in the mind before the hands could begin. Ochre, crushed and ground fine as powder. Bone, heated in the fire and pounded until it broke down into a pale grit. Charcoal, stone chips, and a liquid to bind it all, perhaps water, perhaps marrow, perhaps something we will never be able to name. Stirred gently in the hollow of the shell, the dull ingredients become the sacred red, a paste you can carry, save, and spread across skin. To do this, you must hold a plan in your head across hours and see a thing that does not yet exist. You must know that this lifeless rock, ground and cooked and blended, becomes the color they paint on the hunters before the hunt, the color that marks a body as ready, as chosen, as more than ordinary flesh. In Naru's world, pigment is precious the way food is precious. It costs labor and knowledge and time that nobody has to spare. She is the keeper of that knowledge, and she is respected for it. The old ones remember when there was more of it, when the red ran freely and no one counted the lumps. They watch her hands the way you watch someone measure out the last of the water. Every pinch she grinds is a pinch that cannot be spread on a hunter's chest, and everyone in the band knows the arithmetic of it without saying a word. Which makes what she does next all the harder to forgive, because she is about to spend the sacred red on something no one asked for and no one can use. The season turns hard the way it always eventually does. The great sea is rising year upon year, drowning the low plain where the herds once grazed, pushing the shoreline closer to the cave. The fish come thinner. The tubers come smaller and further apart. Everything in the band is measured now, every scrap of food, every hour of daylight, and every last lump of the red. In a season like this, waste is not a small sin. Waste is close to a crime against the whole group, and Naru is spending the red on something the others cannot even name. She has taken a flake of ground stone, and instead of laying it aside, she has drawn on it. 6 lines, straight and close together, and across them 3 more lines that curve. A pattern, not a picture, not a bison, not a handprint, not a rising sun, not a map of anything you could walk to. A shape that stands for nothing you can point at in the whole wide world. The elders see it and they do not understand, and their not understanding curdles into anger. To them, the red is for the hunt, for the body, for the things that keep the band alive through the winter. In their eyes, she is grinding the sacred color down to nothing to make marks that catch no fish and warm no child. They ask her what it is for. They ask her what it means. And this is the part that shames her, because she has no answer that fits inside their words. A useful thing defends itself. A trap catches a bird and everyone nods. A blade cuts and everyone understands. But the pattern does nothing, feeds no one, and cannot argue for its own life. It survives only because she keeps making it, in the teeth of a hunger that says she should stop. She cannot say it means the sea, because it does not. She cannot say it means the hunt, or the dead, or the coming storm. It does not point outward at anything. It means itself. It is the first thing in the entire history of life that means only itself, and she has no way to explain a thing like that to people who have never needed to. There is no word yet for what she is doing, because the thing she is doing is what words will one day be made of. She's standing at the very edge of language, on the far side of it, alone, and the loneliness of that is real. To carry a thought your whole band cannot follow is a kind of exile, and Naru feels it every time an elder's mouth tightens at the sight of her stones. And yet she cannot stop making it. Something inside her has quietly changed, some new hunger has opened, and she already knows it will not close again. Then one evening, kneeling by the low fire, Naru understands what her own hands have been doing. She has scratched the pattern onto one flake. Now, without quite meaning to, she scratches it again onto a second stone, the same 6 lines, the same 3 curved lines crossing them in the same order. And there it is, the impossible thing. She has said the same thing twice. Sit with how strange that is, because it is the hinge on which everything turns. Every cry an animal has ever made vanishes the instant the sound dies in the air. Every gesture, every warning, every reaching hand is gone the moment the hand comes down. Nothing outlives the body that made it, but a mark stays. A mark can be copied. A mark can be carried across a valley to a place its maker will never see, and drawn again there exactly. For the first time in 3 million years, a meaning has left the body that made it and gone to live out in the world on its own. So she begins to put the sign on things. She marks a bead. These beads are real too, the tiny tick shells of a sea snail called Nacerius, no bigger than a fingernail, pierced through and threaded onto a cord. When we found them, they were worn smooth exactly where they had rubbed against skin and against each other, tens of thousands of years of rubbing polished into the shell. People wore them, not to stay warm, not to eat, to be looked at, to be seen and known by the others in the band. Then Naru marks her own skin with the red, the 6 lines, the 3 crossing them drawn across her forearm. And across the fire a girl sees it, and something happens in the girl's face. Recognition. She knows the sign, not as decoration, as Naru's, the mark that means her. Something has just crossed from one human mind into another, carried on nothing at all but a shape agreed between them. That is what a symbol is, and here is the terrible, wonderful part. Once a band can share a single one, there is nothing to stop them sharing 10,000. A sign for danger, a sign for water, a sign for this place is mine, for that one is kin, for the herd comes when the grass turns. Every one of them a small red mark agreed between minds. The girl who recognized Naru's forearm will grow up in a world that has begun, quietly, to fill with meanings that outlive the mouths that speak them. She does not know it, but she has just been handed the future. Then the winter takes someone, the way winters do. An old man of the band, the one who taught the young how to read the tides and where the shellfish hide when the water pulls back, stops breathing in the night and does not start again. In the morning the band does what people have always done since long before there were people quite like us. They gather close, and they grieve, and they know they must let the body go. But this time something is different. This time they have the mark. Naru takes a flake and draws the pattern one more time, and she draws it slowly, with a weight her hands have never given it before. And then she does a thing no one has told her to do, a thing that has never been done. She places the marked stone with the body. A stone that catches no fish and warms no child, laid down on purpose beside the dead. Ask what the mark means now, and you touch the deepest thing a mind can do. It cannot bring the old man back. It cannot warm him or feed him or ease the cold that has already taken him. And yet it stands for him, for the fact that he was here, that he mattered, that the space where he used to sit is now a wound in the shape of a man. The pattern that once meant only itself, that pointed at nothing in all the world, now points at a whole human life, a person held inside 6 lines and 3. The elders who resented her waist do not stop her now. Something in them understands, without being able to say it either, that the mark belongs here, that the wrongness of this death needs somewhere to go, and the sign gives it a place. This is the move that everything else is built on top of, to let a shape stand in for a thing that is gone. To make a lifeless object carry a meaning the object does not itself contain. A word does exactly that, a name does that, a grave marker, a letter, a face on a coin, every one of them does that same impossible thing. Naru has just laid the ground that all of them will one day stand on, and she has no idea. To her it is only the strange, quiet thing she cannot stop herself from doing a way to say, against the dark and against the cold and against forgetting, that this one was here and this one was ours. Look closely at the oldest drawing on earth and it tells you something that is almost unbearable to know. The lines do not end. They run right off the broken edge of the stone, cut short in the middle of themselves. Which means the flake we found and treasure and put behind glass is only a fragment, corner torn from something larger. The pattern once continued, onto a wider surface that is now lost, ground to dust or drowned by the sea, or simply gone the way almost everything goes. We will never see the whole of it, whatever Naru truly made, how large it was, how finished, what shape it took when it was complete under her hands, has vanished into the deep of time. We hold a single corner of a thought that was much bigger than the corner. We are reading the last surviving line of a poem whose beginning is ash. And this is not the only sign she left. Other pieces of ochre from the same cave carry deliberate cross-hatched engravings, scratched patterns cut into the stone itself, made across thousands of years by hands like hers. This was not one woman's private habit. It was a tradition, a thing passed down, taught, repeated, kept. The mark had already become part of who these people were. And here is the fact that should have rewritten the whole human story long before it finally did. For most of the last century, the story we told ourselves went like this. The human mind woke up in the painted caves of Europe, the bulls of Lascaux, the horses of Chauvet. That was where we supposedly became fully ourselves, where the symbol was born. But Naru's stone is 30,000 years older than any of those paintings. 30,000 years, on the wrong continent for the story we had grown so comfortable telling. The workshop where they mixed the paint, the shells they strung to be beautiful, the drawing that meant nothing you could eat, all of it here, all of it early, all of it in Africa. The birth of the symbolic mind did not happen where we were taught. It happened on this windswept southern shore, in the hands of people we simply forgot to imagine, people exactly as clever, as strange, and as human as we are. People who ground paint from stone, wore shells to be looked at, and could not stop scratching a pattern that fed no one and changed everyone who came after. Naru will die and she will be forgotten completely and without trace. The band will move on as the water keeps rising and swallows the plain where they hunted. The cave will fill with blown sand, season after season, and the sand will fold over her small stone like a hand closing gently over something it means to keep. And then time will do what time does. 73,000 years will pass in the dark above her. Whole peoples will rise and vanish over her head. Languages will be born and die. Cities she could never have dreamed of will grow and fall to ruin and be grown over again. And then one ordinary day in a laboratory far from that shore, a man will sit sifting through thousands upon thousands of unremarkable stone flakes from her cave, and he will stop. Because on one of them, faint but unmistakable, are 6 lines crossed by 3, the oldest drawing ever found by human hands, her drawing. Under the microscope, the analysis is careful and certain. The red is ochre, applied on purpose with a crayon ground to a point, the lines laid down by intention and not by accident. Everything the old story insisted could not exist, this small stone quietly proves. It waited 73,000 years in the dark to be believed. She never knew what she had started. She never knew that the small, strange, useless thing she could not stop doing, making a mark stand in for a meaning, was the buried root of every word that would ever be written. Every letter on every page, every name ever carved in stone, every message ever sent across a distance to a mind it could not see. The entire vast machinery of human meaning grew, in the end, from the impulse alive in her ochre-stained hands. Every promise, every law, every story told across a distance too far to shout, all of it rests on the small bet she made, that a shape could hold a thought and carry it forward. She's speaking to you right now. Across 73,000 years of silence, through a thing she invented and could not name, into a mind she could never once have imagined, yours. This very moment, reading this very sentence, you are using the exact thing she made, the hand that drew nothing, the woman who scratched a shape that stood for nothing at all, and in doing it, drew every one of us.